I had my son living with my mother. That my mom had him dealing dope, unbeknownst to me. And I remember just waking up to a on my face. I had a distinct feeling that I was going to have to dump him somewhere. On one occasion, we actually got ready to go. Dad had just bought a ranch out in Arizona, and I wanted my son to go there. But I told her, I said, I'm going to have to move my son. Hey folks, my name is René Enriquez, and you are watching Uncensored. In Pelican Bay State Prison in 2002, I defected. Soon thereafter, I was flown to Long Beach Airport and driven to Walnut Sheriff Station. It was there that I participated in my debrief. After that, I contacted Chris Blatchford, told him I was interested in doing a book, and boom, here we are doing this interview. Dumped him right there in our front yard. I mean, this sophistication in criminal activities comes hard-earned, you know. We weren't the sharpest guys in the beginning, you know. We're just dope fiend gang members trying to be mobsters. I mean, progressing to this point is like an evolutionary process. I mean, it's little by little we learn by our mistakes to where we get to where we're at today, and we have some semblance of intelligence. So this was the double homicide that I picked up. Let me talk about the intelligence that we had, or the lack thereof. Yeah, we weren't the sharpest guys in the world. I wasn't either. I mean, I developed intellect later in life. I think with age comes wisdom. You know, you immerse yourself in reading. And I took college courses and all that. But here, I was just a egocentric guy, right? And during that process, when I picked up my cases, I was just this megalomaniacal guy. And that's who I was, just an arrogant jerk. When I got cracked, I was at my mom's apartment. I remember they kicked the doors in. I was sleeping with my son. A bunch of cops poured in with SSU. And I remember just waking up to a gun in my face. And I remember hearing the words, "Where's the problem? Where's the problem?" And when the guy put his gun in my face, like pressed it against my face, he said, "Here's the problem right here." And they allowed me to put my tennis shoes on, and my sister pulled a sweatshirt over me, and they came in, they got me, they took me to Hollenbach Station. You know.
How did you get picked up on those
then? They picked me up.
I mean, you didn't go in hiding or anything?
No, I was at my mom's house. I didn't believe that they didn't have anything on us.
You were living at your mom's house?
I was living at my mom's house, and they booked me for parole violation. And I went to court within 72 hours, and it was a DA reject. The DA wouldn't file, they didn't have anything on me. But then one of the guys that was with us that night, Chino Avalos, Chino from White Fence, is out there in the streets, and he gets cracked for robbery or something. And he makes a deal. He gives up me and Mo on the murders, and he walks. And a week later, they file on us. And here we are with a life sentence.
Did he testify? Was he going to testify?
He testified in a preliminary hearing. Yeah. He's in relocation now. Chino from White Fence. I remember that guy well. I never liked him. Mo seemed to like him. And Mo got him on our crew. And he always had this attitude. He had this attitude. I had a distinct feeling, even back then, that I was going to have to dump him somewhere. And that was just the thought. That was the thought. In fact, Mo and I had discussed it on one occasion, that we were going to take him to an alley and dump him because of his attitude. He had like this arrogant attitude. He wouldn't do what I said, talk back. And I'm looking at this guy like, are you effing kidding me? You're on my crew, and you're questioning my authority, and you're talking back. So there was always this animosity between him and I. And on one occasion, we actually got ready to go. We had the pew-pew, and we were going to go do it. We couldn't find him. Soon thereafter, we got cracked, and he's the guy that flipped on us. During this process of eliminating one of the victims, I gave him the weapon, and I told him to go throw it in the ocean off the pier. Lo and behold, this guy went and buried it at his girlfriend's house, because he had a girlfriend. He was married. He had a girlfriend. And he buried it there. He kept it. That was his little chip, his little poker chip he was going to save for when he got in trouble. I guess he planned all along to give us up. And he did. The first time he got arrested, he flipped. He gave up the firearms. He gave up everything. I had a trunk full of weapons at his house, 30 caliber, a Mossberg. I had all kinds of weapons and gear that we used to take on missions, right? And he gave it all up. He gave up everything. But he got out. He testified in preliminary hearing, too. I remember seeing him. In fact, we were going to whack him into court. Me and Mo had a whole thing to whack him into court. We took a knife. We took a key. And we were going to do it right there at the preliminary hearing. But they kept us chained to the chairs. And it was an impossibility. But little did he know he was going to get whacked in that courtroom. We relocated to, I think, Chico, California. We found out later it was in Chico, California.
Did you know a Spider from White Fence?
Yeah, I know Spider. Drug dealer, heroin dealer over there by Laguna Park, I believe it was. Yeah.
Well, he got killed.
I didn't know anything about his murder, but I know he was a drug dealer one time by Laguna Park. We were going to go rob him, as a matter of fact.
We were going to go rob him, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I don't know the specifics about his murder.
That voice right there is Richard Valdemar, one of the dinosaurs in the Mexican Mafia business. This guy was on the first Los Angeles Metropolitan Task Force on Violent Crime. That's the first Mexican Mafia task force, the federal task force, that actually brought about the 1995 RICO case against those 13 cardenales who were first indicted in 1995.
There's so many murders.
He came to me one time and they had fixed him with a hot shot. And they were trying to arrest him in the front of the station because he was under the influence. And all the time he's trying to tell them, hey, look, they're trying to kill me. The reason I'm under the influence is because they stuck a needle in my arm and tried to kill me. They were going to take me out and shoot me. You know, and I finally got, I must have talked to him for 12 hours till he, came back to
Reality.
sense. And then he started showing me what was going on and all that. And I took him back and showed me the houses and all that stuff. And I moved him. I told him, don't go back there.
He went back,
He
huh?
went right back.
Sometimes that's all they know. That's what people regress to, it's because they don't know any better. Once you take them out of their element, they can't function.
But they don't know where else to
They don't know
go.
where else to go. I mean, they're caught up in that drug subculture, the gang subculture, and they can't function in mainstream. I mean, you put them with a job, you put them with a good area, they can't function that way because they're dysfunctional.
That is such a reality. Like, look at all the guys that have gotten got. I'm just using the hood phrase. They got, right? Look at all the guys. Negro Villalba, a little man from Whittier, Eddie Boy from B&E, Rocky Luna. All these guys, they were in their hoods, where they're originally from. They couldn't leave that area because they had nothing else. They knew nothing else. And they regressed to that. And it's a sad testament, right? Knowing your situation and you don't leave the area. It just is what it is. It is what it is. But I think it's because, just like I said, they don't know anything else. And leaving their element, they can't function outside of their element.
And let's face reality, some people can't exist in the mainstream. They can't be productive members of society. And unfortunately, a lot of addicts are this way in the respect that they always regress to what they know. I think there's certain psychological cues and certain cues that just turn them back onto the dope. I mean, they go around the same area, they're around the same people, they do the same things, participate in the same habits, which lead them back to relapse.
That is so true. This is way before I had ever done in-depth studies on substance abuse. 'Cause I did a bunch of in-depth study. I did a bunch of self-help. I did therapy. And that is exactly correct. There are external cues and internal cues. They're called triggers. You could be driving past the dope house where you used to shoot dope 25 years ago, and you've been clean for 25 years. And that driving by that one location where you used to get high will kick off what is known as an internal cue, an internal trigger, right? Something in your brain kicks off that, oh man, I remember shooting dope there, and you start reminiscing and ruminating on all the times you got high there, and it kicks off a trigger, right? So yeah, I did a bunch of study on rehabilitation, and I didn't even know how on point I was when I was saying this, because I was almost totally uneducated on rehabilitation and relapse and recovery, the whole 9 yards, right?
I have had them also tell me a long time, people who have been in the joint for a long time, that it's actually kind of scary when you first get out. Readjusting to freedom.
Reintegration.
Yeah.
For me, I loved it. I got out after 9 years, 8 months, and SSU came and picked me up in Tehachapi when I paroled in '88. They came and picked me up and put me in chains and everything. I thought I was getting violated for something. I said, well, I thought I was supposed to parole. He says, yeah, well, you're coming down with us first. We're going to have an interview with you. So they're talking to me down the way from Tehachapi. I'm paroling from the hole. They had previously notified my father because my father was going to pick me up. And they drive me down. And one of the first things I recognized was all the colors. I've been exposed to all these colors because it's pretty mundane in prison. You get these bland colors like this, gray, white.
I remember that first paroling in 1988 from Tehachapi, and it was like nerve-wracking. I had served a determinate sentence, and I was released, I believe it was in August of 1988, and the SSU came to pick me up. I was on high control parole, and usually people, right after breakfast, they take you to R&R and they release you, right? But in this instance, they would not release me. I kept asking, like 9 o'clock came around, I'd ask, hey, what's up? I'm supposed to parole. And then at 10 o'clock, then midday, and I'd say, what's up? And then finally a cop came to my door. I said, hey, something's going on. Can you just at least let me know what's going on? And a cop came that I knew, one of the COs there at the Tehachapi Southern Maximum Security Complex 4B. He came up and says, hey, I just talked to your counselor, and they said that they're coming to pick you up. That they're coming to pick you up. And I was still like, whoa, what's going on? And I go to R&R. I do the whole bit, sign my parole papers, and they drive me out. 2 agents drive me out. I'm in the back of the car. I'm in waist chains. I'm still in custody. And I told me, I thought I was paroling. And they said, you are. They said, you come with us first, though. And they start hitting me up about MA and all this stuff. And I told them, I don't know what you're talking about, you know. And they said, come on, man, we know you're from the MA and blah, 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 blah. But I go down to their parole office, and that's where they did a piss test. They took pictures of me. They took all my tattoos. Then they drove me home at about 9 at night, walked me in the front door, looked around the house, walked through the house, talked to my dad, tell me about all the rules, and cool. Back then, they didn't have GPS or anything like that. It was just you're on your own. You got to report every week and test once a week, and that's how it was, right? But I remember that distinctly, and I remember how vibrant the colors were, the neon off the side of the freeway. I was fascinated by it. I still am. When I pass by a place when I'm traveling and I see the lights or I see the colors, it's just fascinating. It still is. I never want to lose that feeling.
I'm seeing all these neon signs down the freeway. They stop at a restaurant and they ask me if I want something. I'm just too nervous to eat. And they're trying to grill me and, you know, trying to pump me for information. Who made you? How long you been a member? And I said, what are you talking about? What does that hand mean on your chest? I'm a handball champ. What are you talking about? You know, that's what it means. You know, it means hi. It means anything you want it to mean, but it doesn't mean what you think it means. The same wise guy response given to everybody, you know. But I love the fact that I was getting out. But we go down there to the station, or actually the Ambadillo Drive in La Puente, this region up here, Region 4, I believe it is. We go to the parole office and we go in there. It's about 9 o'clock at night when I get there, and they take pictures of me. They take all my clothes off, all my tattoos. I do a urine test, and I tell them, what is this? I'm supposed to parole. See, technically, we can hold you till 12 o'clock at night, and then you'll parole. So we're going to take you home to your house and search your house, and, you know, we're going to lay out the rules for you. But I remember that night, they took me to my dad's house. They did a walkthrough of the house and told me what I could have and couldn't have, and then they left. And I was free. That quick, from prison to freedom. And I loved it. I was sitting there with my son. My dad went and got me a 6-pack of Coronas.
I remember that distinctly. I was sitting there. My dad had a 6-pack of Corona waiting for me, and I started knocking them back. I think I had 3. And it was me and my oldest son, Bobby. And we sat there and we were talking, and he was just thrilled. He was thrilled, and I was thrilled. I'm like, I'm out of prison, and I'm sitting there with my son, and I'm sitting in the living room drinking beer. I didn't have any restrictions on alcohol. I never had a problem with alcohol, ever. I was never an alcoholic, and I never had a problem with drinking, right? So the only thing they wanted me not to do was narcotics, and that was my restriction. But yeah, they did the walkthrough in the house, and they saw a toy gun of my son, said, you can't have that, it's a violation. And I asked them, I said, that's my son's toy. And no, you can't have it. We'll violate you for it. Like, they were pretty heavy-handed, right? But yeah, they did the walkthrough and left me there, and then I was a free man.
And my dad was actually having a heart attack that night. He had chest pains. He had pains in his arm. He was sweaty. He felt like he called them agrudas, like heartburn, indigestion.
I remember this. I didn't even remember that until now. But my father had a heart attack the night that I paroled. And he went to bed like normal. And the next morning, he goes to work and ends up in the hospital. Me and my younger brother, we went out somewhere and we got a phone call from my father's wife that he was in the hospital. So we shot down there. And little did I know that my dad was actually having a heart attack. Because I guess the stress and the excitement and everything was just too much for him, right? And we went and seen him in the hospital. He recovered pretty well after that.
He was actually having a heart attack. I guess the stress from my being released and all that pent up on him. He didn't go to the hospital till the next day. It was then they determined he had a minor heart attack. But we had a good time that night. We had a beer. Me and my son, we slept in the same bed. He was about, 7 years old at that point in time. 8 years old. And we just stayed up talking all night. I was drinking cold beer. We're watching TV. We're talking.
Was Pam still living with your parents then? Or?
No, Pam was living with her boyfriend somewhere else. She had a kid from somebody else.
She left your son with your parents?
Yeah, she left him. I was supposed to get the other kid as well, but she couldn't leave him because I guess her boyfriend didn't want her to or something like that.
Yeah.
She couldn't leave him because I guess her boyfriend didn't want her to or something like that.
Yeah.
But I had Bobby, my oldest son, there. And
She turned out to be a bad mom then, or a good one?
No, she was a pretty good
She
mom.
was a pretty good mom.
Yeah. Other than the fact that and she didn't abuse the kids or anything like that. They were always fed and they were clothed and they always had a home to live in. But I always got the kids. I always convinced her to give my parents the kids.
Yeah, one thing I won't do is talk bad about the mother of my children. It's whatever differences we have. I just won't do that. I just don't think it's gentlemanly. It's not.
Let my dad have Bobby, or let my mom have Bobby. I wanted my kids to be with my family, and she would do that. She'd say, okay. They'd go with my parents for a while. They'd go back with her. But she always had a job, and she's always had a home. She's never used dope. She just wasn't that type of woman. That wasn't the type of woman she was. I think in the respect that maybe she put men before her children, it may be her flaw. That's the one thing I don't respect about her. But I never spoken ill about her. I've never talked bad about her as a parent to my children. And that's one of the rules that I'm strong and steadfast about. I never spoke ill about their mother to them. I mean, I don't think a man is supposed to do that. Especially about a child's mother. You don't diminish her in their eyes.
What saved your son that's at UCLA, do you think?
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that men aren't supposed to do that. Whether a relationship works or fails, I think it's pretty low of a man to go talk bad to a child about its mother, right? I just don't agree with that, and I never have, and I still adhere to that. If it went sideways between a couple, then you just pick up the pieces and move on. There's no need to inflict trauma on a kid, particularly their mother, by you tainting their view of who their mother is. I don't believe in that, and that holds true today.
I don't know. I think my dad did. I think my dad had so much experience with us that he says, I'm going to make this guy work.
Did he raise him pretty much?
Yeah, him and my mom, they raised him. He spent a few years with my mom, and then the rest of his life, my dad raised him. And I think my dad had so much failure with us that he realized what he did wrong, and he just steered my son in a different direction.
That's the truth. Yeah, I had my son living with my mom. When I got divorced from my first wife, I got custody of Bobby, my oldest son. And I later got custody of Rene, my youngest son. But I had Bobby, and I had him living with my mother. And unbeknownst to me, that my mom had him actually dealing dope and doing a bunch of stuff, right? He was in the hood, White Fence. That's where they used to live, on Whittier and Euclid. Right in those ghetto apartments, and he was immersed in it, right? And had I left my son there to live with my mother, I think he would have been in prison. He would have been another replication of me. And I saw the changes in my son. He started combing his hair back, smoking cigarettes, and I'd made a decision. I made a command decision right then. I knew it was going to break my mom's heart, but I told her, I said, I'm going to have to move my son to my dad's place. My dad had just bought a ranch out in Elfrida, Arizona, and I wanted my son to go there. And my son resisted. Please, Dad, no, you're going. That's final. That's law. And I sent my son out there to live with my dad in Arizona. And I think it's the best thing I've ever done because my dad raised him, and he raised him right.
And then he just took a different tact on it, and just got my son to college. As a matter of fact, he got my son Rene late. My son was about 16 years old, and he had some success with him. My son graduated high school, and he's working now in Arizona. I mean, he's dabbled in some drugs. He's been involved in some drugs, but he's straightened himself up. He's not using drugs, smoking marijuana. I think he was snorting some methamphetamines.
I'm talking about my son Rene here, and I firmly believe that if my father would have got Rene at the same time that he got Bobby at a young age, that my father could have sculpted him and guided him. Unfortunately, we got Rene when he was 16, 17 years old, after it was too late, after he had already experienced all the trauma in his household by various individuals. He was already on a path. But my dad did the best he could and got him to go to trade school, got him to graduate high school, all that good stuff, right? But we lost him along the way.
We were really concerned about him at one point. Yeah. But he's, since my dad's got a hold of him, he's done great.
Better.
He's done great. As a matter of fact, he's supposed to be coming back here to live with my father during the summer. And Bobby's a major influence on him too.
Now, how did Shirley end up with him then?
Well, during the last first 2 years of college, last year of junior college, he was going to Golden West. He was going to transfer to UCLA, and my dad moved to Arizona. So Bobby wanted to stay here and attend Golden West, so he stayed with Shirley and Albert. He actually worked with them in the law office in Albert's business. You know, Albert's what kind of business has he got? Product representation or something like that.
Yeah, we're talking about Albert Juarez and Shirley McDonald. My son actually lived with them. My son actually lived with them. Even after I dropped out, they were still good to my kids. And the Cardenales would call the law office and talk to my son. And one of the things I greatly admire about the brothers, you know, they knew where my family was at and they never hurt them. And I think it's the one standout thing about the organization that they don't do that. You know, I know there have been some mishaps in the past where innocent people have been injured, but I can say with 100% certitude, they don't go after family members. It's just not how the organization is made. And it's the one moral code that all members uphold, because it's like everybody has family and they have nothing to do with the decisions we make, and that we are held solely responsible for our decisions. Even my brother Mark was on an active yard with Cardenales after I dropped out, and they didn't hurt him. I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful for those Cardenales that had the opportunity and didn't do it, and put a stop to it whenever there was talk. Forever grateful.
Movie companies.
Something like that. Yeah, they do some kind of logos on cups and hats and all that stuff.
Yeah.
They even do some stuff with the Lakers. But he ended up working with them. And they're the ones that told me, let him stay with us. Let him stay with us. I told him, okay. 'Cause I know Shirley and Albert, they're good people. I mean, a lot of people have this perception that they're dirty. But all I know about those people is they're good. They're involved in some social activism. And I know that they facilitated my putting my son through college. You know,
And you don't think the cause is a front for the Mafia?
No, not that I know of. I know that my kid benefited from it. You know, my kid's going through college is a result of a lot of scholarships, a lot of hard work. You know, it's I helped him as much as I could, but a lot of it is due to Shirley and Albert. A lot of it is due to Shirley and Albert. So all I know is good about them.
Yeah.
I've never personally involved them in nefarious activities and criminal activities, and I've never known that they've been involved in them.
That is the absolute truth. You know, all I've ever known from Shirley McDonald, who I heard passed away a couple of years ago from cancer. So my condolences to Albert Juarez and their surviving family members and friends. My condolences wholeheartedly. But I never knew them to be involved in anything illicit. And that's the truth. Not just because they live with my son and they took care of my son and they got him a scholarship. None of those things. I just never knew them to be involved in criminal activity. Albert Juarez was in Pelican Bay State Prison next to Joe. That's how Joe met Shirley. And they got married after Albert got out. And, you know, they're just good people. They did the right thing. They moved away. They got away from it all because a lot of stuff was happening around that time. And they could have easily been sucked into it. But Shirley, being the astute, intelligent individual she was, decided we're moving. And I think it's the best decision they ever made in their lives. But they went on to live together in love for the rest of Shirley's life. And I think that was a blessing. So my condolences to Albert Juarez, their family, their kids, whatever relatives they have. My condolences to him. Hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hype the video, folks. Hype, hype, hype. And remember, always watch the video in its entirety. With that said, have a wonderful day. I'm out. Peace.